right, this is Learning Russian Lesson 1. On the right-hand side of the screen, we'll get right into it. Let's analyze this old Soviet propaganda picture. Take a moment, go ahead and feel free to pause the video and think about what this picture is saying. All right, so if you've thought deep about it and you have some ideas, it might not be entirely intuitive from the layman's perspective of somebody that doesn't have a deep understanding of Soviet culture or Soviet history. But obviously in the background, you see this large hammer and sickle statue. Looks very powerful. It's exalted in the sky. He's in a very powerful pose. It's a masculine looking man. He's got big muscles. He's clearly familiar with labor in some sort. Lower in the bottom left of the screen, you see a bunch of red flags, which is synonymous with that the Soviet flag, as well as a color prominent in most communist countries. You see a lot of women actually are the ones that are carrying the flags, it looks like. But what stuck out to me the most was the man and the woman in the front. They have this fixated gaze that is outward, and it's a male and a woman, which seems contrary to a lot of the propaganda that we see in other countries, especially during that same era. Because here we see the strong idealized features of their looking toward the future, like they're waiting for something, and it represents to me the socialist vision of gender equality. So really, the best way to put it here is that the Soviet Union specifically put a man and a woman together under the same umbrella here in this propaganda picture to demonstrate the equality and the gender parity of labor and their contribution toward the Soviet Union, which, by the way, up at the top in Russian, it says Советский Союз, which means Soviet Union, and that's dated Iyul 1953, which is July. All right, next slide. So the history of the Russian language. This first lesson is going to all be in English, by the way. That first slide was just kind of a thought-provoking exercise. History of the Russian language. So it started very long time ago in the 9th century from this land highlighted here called Rus. So Rus is pronounced Rus. You can see the English characters there. It has what's called a soft sign on the end of that word, but we'll get into detail what that means later on. Essentially, everyone on that highlighted area of the map, they spoke mutually intelligible dialects. What that means is they all spoke relatively the same language, but there were some discrepancies in exactly, what they were saying. Think about it like American English versus potentially British English versus a very thick Scottish type of English. Potentially even borderline a different language, but again, mutually intelligible. That's how it sounded back then, but it was Slavic. It was a Slavic language, spoken language, and it came from what we'll learn in the next slide, the Old Church Slavonic, or in Russian that's pronounced Древнерусский. So Ruski sounds like potentially a word that you've heard before. Ruski means Russian in Russian. So from the word Rus came Ruski, which, as you'll learn in later lessons, is just the adjectival form, essentially, of that word Rus. All right, next slide. So the history of the Russian alphabet. This to me was probably one of the most interesting things that I learned when I was learning Russian for the first time, because the Russian alphabet is so unique, and a lot of the characters are the same as what we have in English. There's a few in there that if you ever been to a sorority or a fraternity, you've probably noticed the similar letters, and that's actually because these two guys, Cyril and Methodius, they were Greek. They were biblical scholars, and at the time, with all the political ties that religion played in our country's expansion, it was kind of the in thing to do to learn uh, or to be a translator for your religion, because there was a lot to gain in that. But let's say these two were quite the hobbyists, the hobby linguists, and they actually created their own alphabet for those people in that Rus area from the previous slide. They created that alphabet based on their own Greek letters, and that was able to produce the sounds required to speak this mutually intelligible dialect language that the Slavs spoke in that Rus region. So we'll learn more about that in the next slide, but over time that language changed from even within the Russian Empire to the Soviet Union, and especially now with modern Russia. But all in all, the sounds remained the same. It's just slight nuances with the spelling. All right, so very cool slide here. We have how the Russian sounds actually are produced from a side shot of the mouth itself. So in Russian, there's a S noise and then a SH noise. So there's a S as well as a sh. There's a Z noise as well as a Z noise, written as a ZH. Let's learn about the voiced and unvoiced consonants. So, voiced, perfect example right here is S and Z. S voiced, Z, or excuse me, S unvoiced, Z voiced. If you are listening along this far and you're confused, that's okay. We'll do a quick trial right here. Try to make the Z sound, Z, but in a whisper. So there's your challenge. Pause the video, try as hard as you can, make that Z sound in a whisper. Okay, were you successful? Probably not. The reason that you probably weren't successful is because to whisper, typically, when you whisper, you don't vibrate your vocal cords. You're not actually vibrating your vocal cords when you're whispering. You're just blowing air through your mouth in a way that you form your mouth to produce sounds. So when you vibrate your vocal cords, you're actually just emphasizing and producing sounds. But at least in our English language, we have the same voiced and unvoiced syllables. S's are not voiced in the English language. So when I say, for example, the word say, I don't say zay, I say say. I don't vibrate my vocal cords when I blow air through the s configuration of my mouth to produce that sound S. So now you should start thinking, okay, well, if the word S-A-Y or even S-O, so how am I even making a sound? Well, I'm making a sound because I have a vowel, S and O, an unvoiced consonant plus a vowel. All vowels are going to be voiced. And the reason is because vowels don't really come from the configuration of the tongue and blowing air through a certain configuration of the mouth. They come from the back, which we would see here on the slide. It would be kind of more toward the back of the mouth or even down here. And in some languages, it's even all the way down here, like in Arabic, where you hear the ayn. They have the glottal stops in some languages. But back to the topic here, which is Russian. we'll see a lot of this play a crucial role in learning how to pronounce all the words properly, um, both with the voiced and unvoiced, and as well as hard and soft vowels, which hard and soft vowels, um, can't really think of anything in English off the top of my head that would be of an equivalent, but they're very applicable in the Russian language. Uh, to give a quick example, there's a vowel E and a vowel U. So E is hard, U is soft. The E is up here and the U is back here. And you probably didn't even know you had a hard palate and a soft palate, but that's where those noises are made from the positioning of your tongue. So let's go line by line. If you know the alphabet already, then you can read along. If not, just listen closely. We'll go from top left to right and then back down left to right. So starting with the first letter. By the way, the vowels are all in red. The consonants are all in blue. And these two black ones down here, well, these are just, this is a soft sign and a hard sign. We'll get into those. So, A, B, V, G, D, Е, Ю, Ж, З, И краткая, К, Л, М, Н, О, П, Р, С, Т, У, Ф, Х, Ц, Ч, Ш, Ш, твердый знак, И, мягкий знак, Ю, Я. Congratulations, you've made it through the alphabet in Russian. So don't let it be intimidating. It will come with time if you're not already familiar with it. You might want to replay this part of the video a bunch and learn it, or at least hear it. But let's move to the next slide for now. All right, so very easy to memorize these letters. I've broken them down into 5 categories. Category 1 is all letters that exist. Well, actually, I challenge you right now. What do you think the difference between these categories are? If I was teaching this class in person, we'd walk around and ask everybody in the room, and it'd be a lot of fun. But if you're listening by yourself, pause the video, take as much time as you want, and think about what do you think these categories are broken down in. All right, so if you pause the video, congratulations. If you're still following along, or if you've already figured it out, cool. Category 1, these 5 letters, these are letters that exist in the English language already just by themselves. Category 2, these are letters that exist, Category 1, they exist in the English language and they sound the way that they do in English. A, K, M, O, T. You could say like avta for like auto. Ka, everybody should be familiar with the word Kalashnikov. If you're not, where have you been? M, Misha, maybe, for the word Mike, short for Mikhail. Let's see, or you could say Ostera, you could just say like island, Ostera. T, maybe tort. Tort is cake in Russian. All right, so category 2. Category 2 are letters that exist in the English language, but they're like false cognates. They don't produce the same sound that they do in English. So that thing that looks like a B on the left, that's actually a V. It's a V sound in Russian. V, then it's ye, a Y-E sound. The H is an N. The P is an R, a rolled R. The C is a S. The Y is a U, a long U sound. and the X is a Kha. So first letter, every Russian and potentially you would get a lot of pleasure out of saying this word. Vodka. Vodka is how you would spell, is how you would say vodka in Russian, but it's spelled with that first letter. Vodka. Yeah. Um, yeah. There's lots of words that begin with yeah. Uh, but typically that yeah, we'll learn a little bit more about the yeah in category 4. But if you see a yeah, it's pronounced yeah. Typically, if it's stressed in a word, you'll see a different one. I'll explain more in category 4. But that word is yeah. The in we could say like новый. Новый means new in Russian, or новое, новое, новые, depending on the gender and plurality number of the noun you're describing. R. You should know a word already that is begins with R, and that's русский, русский or Россия, Russian or Russia. S. Speaking of Russia, Sibiri. Sibiri is Siberia. So S. Sibiri. U. U. A word that starts with U would be улица, which means street. Улица. And Х, we'll say хлеб. Хлеб. It means bread. Okay, category 3. Category 3, we have Б, Г, Д, З, И, Л, П, F, and E. So, category 3 are unique Russian letters, but English equivalent sounds. So, B. We could even say biblioteca, which, if you're familiar with some basic Spanish, biblioteca means exactly what you think it means. It means library. G. Город. Город. City. D. Дедушка. Дедушка is similar to the word babushka, which you've heard of it before, potentially. But dedushka is grandpa instead of grandma, okay? Z. Zеленый. Zеленый, green. E. E. We'll say intergalactический, intergalactic. Okay? E. L. Lenin. Lenin. Vladimir Lenin. Okay, P. P. P, we could say Pushkin. Pushkin, a famous Russian poet. F. Funt. Funt is pound. A pound of something, or also pound sterling. E. Energy. Energy. Energy, you could just say. Energy for E. And a caveat on this letter right here, E on the end. If you see that starting, if you see a Russian word starting with E, it's a foreign word. Okay, that's a sound that does not start in Russian words except for the word this is or there is, which we'll learn soon. Category 4. All right, this category is totally new stuff to English speakers. These sounds aren't really made in our language, and the characters that represent them have no similarity to our language. Okay, so this first one is a soft vowel, you, you. Okay, the word Julia in Russian is Yulia, Yulia. Okay, that starts with you. Ya, ya in Russian is actually a word itself. It means I. It's the pronoun I, and there's no gender to that pronoun. It's always I is the same across genders. A word that starts with it could be яблоко, which is apple. Okay, your. as promised, we'll go over this your. So basically, the umlauts over the e, okay, that that makes the pronunciation your. In category two, we saw the regular e without the umlauts, and that's pronounced yeah. So your and yeah, but with your is typically found when the yeah is stressed in a word, which will cover Russian stresses as well. Um, in the Russian language, there's only one stress per word. You can have a monosyllabic uh, word, and one vowel is going to be stressed in the monosyllabic word. Monosyllabic meaning one syllable. There's only going to be one stress in that word. But if that were a your, then it would be stressed. It's not really something that you have to worry too much about, just to keep in the back of your head as you're learning, because the more you practice consistently with 4 to 5 months, you won't even notice it. You'll pronounce it correctly every time, but you'll remember that rule that there's only one stressed vowel in any Russian word, whether that word is monosyllabic or bisyllabic, or I'm sure the word may be potentially polysyllabic, a bunch of syllables in the word. A word like достопримечательность. Достопримечательность is like a tourist site. That's one word, a lot of syllables in that word, but there's only one stress, and that's on the a in чательность. So достопримечательность. Okay, so long explanation for the your. The next is же. Же. A word that starts with же would be жизнь. It's a very Russian letter, uniquely Russian, and it's pronounced же. Okay, the next is це. Це. You make this sound by saying a T, like starting to say T, but then passing air through your mouth as if you're saying an S. So, tse, 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 tse. Okay. A word that starts with tse in Russian would be цена. Цена means price. Ценный, очень ценный, очень, yeah, we'll cover that later. Цена, cost. Okay, price. Che. The next is cha. Cha. Cha is a word that starts with cha is chai, which is probably the same in every language almost. Chai, there's a lot of languages where chai means what it means. It means tea. Okay, chai, tea. Cha, ch, ch. Okay, ch is actually, you think, is it voiced or unvoiced? Ch, ch is unvoiced. Okay, because there's no vibration of the vocal cords. It's just air getting passed through configuration in the mouth. All right, next. Pra, pra, pra. Okay, this is a very strong SH noise. All right, it's almost like you have to do a flat tongue. At least that's how I think of it. A flat tongue, bottom of my teeth. I make a very strong SH noise. The next, do not be confused. There's a little tail on it. All right, that's how you tell the difference. It's okay. So versus, and the best way to describe it would be like if you're saying fish church. The from fish and the from church pronounced quickly. Okay, so we can say pляпа. Pляпа is a hat. Okay, now pit. Pit is a shield. So it's not pit, it's pit. Okay, so there is a difference as you listen to more and more native Russian speakers, authentic language material. You'll be able to pick up the difference between pra and sa much more easily, and it's important to practice the difference between these, because what you don't want to do is you don't want to get lazy and just say them both the same, because in your mind they're practically the same. Very important to keep in mind that in a Russian's mind, to a Russian's ear, these are totally different consonants. They're not interchangeable, and they sound completely different. And what I've noticed along the journey of learning and practicing Russian over the years is that is much stronger and pronounced, whereas the sh is a lot more in the upper teeth and with my tongue involved to kind of exaggerate the difference between them. The sh is like low and strong. The sh is kind of like light and in the teeth. But there's definitely that sh instead of the sh. Okay. Uh, if you don't understand, that's fine. Just know the difference and know that there's a distinction between them. Next, uy, uy is how you pronounce this word. Uy, uy is the soft form of the e from category 3. It's another vowel, but instead of it being pronounced in the front of your mouth, it's pronounced and created as a vowel sound from the back of your mouth. Uy. Okay. The last letter we have is ikratkaya. Ikratkaya is a short e, essentially, is what it means. Kratkaya in this case is short. Uh, that letter falls on the end of some words, typically like a masculine adjective, or really, I mean, it could be masculine or feminine, but you'll see that to mark an adjective or certain uh, grammatical cases. It's a word that, or excuse me, it's a letter that is typically found at like the end of a word, sometimes in the middle of a word, but pretty much no words start with that. That's just kind of one of those um, soft kind of like ending words that or ending letters that are totally play a role in the language, but um, it's it'll take getting used to, because it's not quite something that you pronounce. It's just kind of one of those things that is there to make sense. Um, I would say like the word Dmitri. Dmitri in Russian, Dmitri. If we were to spell the word Dmitri in English, we would spell it Dmitriy, potentially. Okay. Now, if you spell Dmitri without the Y at the end, I would still be able to pronounce Dmitri. So why did I add the Y? Well, I added the Y because in Russian it ends in this ikrakaya, and that ikrakaya is going to get added when translated over as a Y. Okay, so is it super necessary in the word Dmitri, especially if I spell it with Latin characters? I'd say no, because I can still pronounce Dmitri with ending in an I, but the ikrakaya gets translated as a Y. So think of it like one of those type of words. Okay, it's not like you're going to mispronounce something if you don't have it, but it's absolutely necessary in the spelling, and it would be mispronounced potentially without it. Okay, for reasons that we don't need to get into in this first lesson. All right, now category 5, last but not least, tvoriznak and miakiznak. I'm saying two different words there. The first is an adjective describing the second word, which is znak. Znak means sign in Russian. Okay, tvrdy is hard, an adjective meaning hard, and myaki is soft. So the first one is tvrdy, tvrdy znak, and the second one is myaki, myaki znak. Tvrdy znak and myaki znak. Okay, tvrdy znak. You would see this in remember the difference that we have between yeah and your, the e and e umlaut. Okay, if I had a non-umlauted e, but I had, say, an s in front of it, we'll take the word siyechat, which means like to drive away. Okay, siyechat. I'm saying s, I'm pronouncing the s, and then I'm making hard that yeah. Okay, because I'm not saying siyechat, I'm saying siyechat. So do you see how different it sounds? Where if I didn't have the hard sign, I would say siyechat, but properly adding the hard sign, I would say siyechet. Okay, there's added emphasis on that preceding vowel, and that's what makes it a hard sign. Okay, this is a lot less common than the soft sign, miakiznak, which would soften essentially the last vowel sound and consonant combination of the word. So, perfect example is a lot of times, guys, people want to learn how to say bro or brother in the language. Okay, brat, brat is how you say brother, but to take as a verb is brat, brat. So one is like brat, 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 brat is brother, but brat with the T soft sign, te nyakiznak, brat is the infinitive of the verb to take. Okay, so adding that soft sign is what would change that, and you see it on a lot of words, both sometimes in the middle, sometimes at the end, never at the beginning. These two words, by the way, or letters, by the way, category 5, they're never at the beginning of a word. They're only going to be found in the middle or the end of a word. All right, so an example of brat. We'll stick with brat for now as the example of hard versus soft. All right, now right here, played a little game. If you've already learned the alphabet and can kind of pronounce some stuff, then maybe you can read what I wrote on the left. And there's a reason I did this. There's a reason why I wrote it this way. I spelled who can read this? Who can read this? What I'm saying is who can read this? But I use the Cyrillic alphabet to spell it. Okay, I'm saying English, but I'm pronouncing it the way that a Russian would. Think about that if you were a Russian learning English. Okay, you're pronouncing who can read this using the essentially the equipment, using everything that you have to produce sounds at your disposal. You didn't get a cool course like this. You didn't get a lesson that spoke and showed you how to move your tongue and your mouth and your hard palate and soft palate. So you're not equipped with the ability or the confidence to be able to change your mouth to produce different sounds. So you're just going to say, who can read this? And that's a thick accent that potentially could lead to misinterpretations or difficulties in spoken language. Okay. But we'll go ahead and get through some of these. Now, if you're not already confident to read or you don't know the letters, then this is not going to be your slide, but we'll go through them anyway. Okay, this one right here, this orange in the top left, passport, passport. Okay, now that means passport. Passport sounds a lot like the English word passport. In linguistics, that's called a cognate. A cognate is a word that means the same in one language as it does in another. Okay, passport. The O, it's not port. Port would be a port. Okay, but passport. The first a is stressed. The second vowel, the O, is not stressed. When an O is not stressed, it's pronounced ah. Okay, so passport. It's not passport, it's passport. Passport. Okay. Next, the green in the middle and the top. Sergeant. Sergeant. If you're in the military and you're a non-commissioned officer, and you're in the army at least, this is your name. Okay. Sergeant. That's your name. Sergeant. Sergeant. And fun fact, in the Russian military, there are varying degrees of ranks. There's like senior sergeant, etc. Okay, so a lot like a staff sergeant or a sergeant first class, sergeant первого класса, etc. So sergeant, very similar to the English. Again, another cognate. Right here, armia. Speaking of army, armia, army, armia. Address, 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 address. Okay. Here we have, oh, look at this. A little soft sign in the middle of the word. Computer, 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 computer. First O is unstressed. The U is stressed. Computer, computer, computer. All right. Capitan, capitan, captain. All right. Capral, capral, corporal. Whiskey, whiskey, whiskey is whiskey. And then our favorite word, vodka, vodka, vodka. Okay. Vo. Here's a good example of a stressed O. Vodka. All right. It's not vodka. It's vodka. Vodka. All right. Next slide. Yeshua. Okay. Yeshua. Yeshua means more. All right. These are some non-cognates that'll test your Russian skills right here. Привет. Привет. Hello. Хорошо. Good. Готов. Ready. Спасибо. Thank you. Пожалуйста. Please. Also, you're welcome. Работа. Work. Больше. 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 More. Okay, more. Notice the soft sign. It's not больше. It's больше. It softens this first vowel. Больше. If this soft sign was not here, which is not a word, by the way, it would be больше. Больше. Bullshit. Bullshit. It would not be what it is, which is больше. Больше. You're going to have to move your mouth, move your tongue, and position it in a different part of your mouth to produce that sound, okay? Do not be like the who can read this person that does not change the way that their mouth moves when speaking a foreign language, okay? To properly pronounce this word, you need to configure your mouth in a way so as to produce the sound bull, bullshit. That includes your lips, that includes your tongue, etc., okay? Уже, уже means already in Russian, and srazu means immediately. Okay, a little bit of a fun ending page right here. It's got this goofy guy with this is called the ushanka, the Russian hat with the little Soviet crest right there. He says, you know, I'm something of a tovarish myself. Tovarish means comrade. Okay? That concludes the lesson. Thank you for listening. And good job.